Welcome to the Radical Lifestyle Podcast, brought to you by Generation to Generation, where you'll be inspired by the past, equipped for the present, and prepared for the future as we engage in conversations with people from around the world. If you've been inspired by the guests that we've had on the podcast, please like, subscribe, comment, hit notification bells, whatever you can do on the platforms that you're listening on, so that more people have the opportunity of hearing these and engaging in our community. Hello everyone, this is Andrew and Daphne. Our guest today is Yair Pinto. Now, Yair, for people that don't know who you are, could you just say a bit about where you're from and what you do?
Okay, so I'm Yair Pinto. I'm an Israeli, born and raised in Jerusalem. I also believe in Jesus as the Messiah of the world. And in the past year, I've been known, I think from my videos, from the front lines of the IDF, in the fighting Hezbollah in the north, and then fighting Hamas in the Gaza Strip. I believe that, especially since this war started, and even before that, there is a lack of information around the world. So what my team and I started to do while this war started was sharing the truth of what's happening on the ground. So at the beginning, it was just, okay, I'm here, I miss my family. Hamas launched attacks against Israel. We are defending ourselves. Please pray for us. Please support Israel. And then it grew and grew, and more people voiced the need for information. So we started a daily news broadcast on YouTube and on other platforms called TBN Israel. So I am here now at the TBN Israel studios in Jerusalem. And that's me. I'm a father of 3 children. I have 2 girls and 1 little boy. He turned 2 months ago, and both of them, the girls, started school and kindergarten yesterday. So very exciting times back at home. That's it. All redheads. None of them look like me, thank God. Look like my wife.
That is thrilling. I saw some pictures too of 2 other little girls starting kindergarten, and I think they were taken to the kindergarten by the soldiers of the unit where their father had been killed. That was very moving to see that.
Yeah, and then sadly many soldiers, lost their lives in this war. So this is happening a lot.
And then for people that hear this, they say, I like Yair, I want to follow him, I want to see what he's doing. Where can they do that?
Okay, so the best way will be go to TBN Israel on YouTube. That is our major platform, but basically on every social media platform, either Twitter or X or whatever you want, or also Google Yair Pinto, and then you can go to my personal accounts as well. But the major daily updates and everything that we do, search for TBN Israel on YouTube or visit our website, tbnisrael.com.
Okay, and I'll find a few of those links and I'll put them in the description box. So for people listening or watching this, they can go there and they'll be ready for them to go and check out.
I appreciate that.
On October 7th, where were you? When did you realize what was going on? And but when, I guess as well, when did you realize this was actually a much more serious situation than sort of just your regular kind of rocket that's fired to Israel?
Yeah. Okay. So let me set the stage a little bit wider than that. So in Israel, every man and woman, when they turn 18, they go to the IDF to serve for either 3 years or 2 years, because in order to defend ourselves and live in this region, which is the Middle East, as you know, is not a nice neighborhood, we need to have a strong army. So every person goes to the army when they turn 18, and then they stay in the army until the age of 45. That was before this war started. Now it's until the age of 50 if you're an officer. So basically, throughout your adult life, you are part of the IDF, part of the Israeli military. Okay, so this is kind of the background. And in Israel, since, 20 years almost now, we have either rocket attacks or terrorist bombings by Hamas or by other Palestinian terrorist groups on almost daily or maybe weekly circles or bases. So rockets being fired from Gaza is not necessarily a major event. I mean, it's crazy that we're used to living with these rockets being flown over our heads, and we don't think it's something different. Like people say, okay, there's a rocket attack, but let's continue eating. No need to go crazy. But then on October 7th, it is a Jewish high holiday called Simchat Torah. Okay, the Jewish people are celebrating receiving the Bible, and basically everybody's at home. It was a Saturday morning. I'm at home, and I remember waking up at around 6 in the morning, and this is after having a big family meal the night before, celebrating the holiday, and waking up in my bed in my house, and I start opening my phone and I see all these alerts, rocket attacks, sirens, also in Jerusalem, which is a bit more unusual than in the south or in the northern borders of Israel. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe they decided to fire a bit more rockets than usual, but I didn't understand, and my wife also, the magnitude of what happened. Okay, so I get a phone call from my dad, who was here also with a group of tourists, and he asked me, so what is going on? And I said, I don't know, maybe Hamas is launching some rockets, nothing unusual, But then we start opening the news and seeing reports on social media platforms, and more people say, boom, a terrorist infiltrated Israel. More terrorists. We are engaged in a fighting with terrorists in some Israeli communities along the border with the Gaza Strip. Okay, this is something very new, and it happens in multiple locations on multiple at the same time. And then the IDF is reporting that terrorists have crossed the border from the Gaza Strip, and a few IDF bases are under attack. Okay, and it keeps escalating. We see reports of hostages, Israeli hostages, being taken into the Gaza Strip. We start seeing videos because Hamas terrorists have GoPro cameras attached to their bodies as they enter the Israeli communities, as they murder Israeli civilians, including children, including women, including the elderly. Okay, so you see all these terrible images on social media, and they take the phones of the victims and post live videos on the victims' phones showing their families that as they are murdering the Israeli victims. Okay, so they were not ashamed of what they did. They made sure to humiliate the Israelis. They made sure everything is public and everything is on camera. Okay, this is what the news that I'm beginning to receive, and still we didn't understand how big and what's the magnitude of what happened. As the day goes by, we hear reports of terrorists infiltrating Israeli cities further into the heart of Israel, not just on the border communities with the Gaza Strip. Okay, we hear reports of the IDF trying to mobilize and to regain control of these communities. We have reports of multiple terrorists barricaded themselves within Israel. Okay, so this is happening for a few days at this time already. And me, on a personal level, it's still a Saturday, and I realize that in a few hours I'm going to get a phone call from my commander telling me it's time for you to go with your unit to our base and get ready for war. And I'm preparing, because in Israel everybody has a bag with the uniform, with the boots, and a few underwear and the socks ready for this, to be called to a war. And I'm used to being called to the IDF either for training or to prepare for this war, but never called for an all-out war like this thing.
Yeah.
So this is the situation. At the moment, I have my wife, 2 kids, a 5-year-old, and then a 3-year-old, and another 3-month-old baby with my wife. And I need to tell my wife that I need to leave her and go to fight this war. And this is the situation all across Israel. I'm just one example of hundreds of thousands of IDF reserve soldiers and officers that were called on that day. The next day, I was already on the northern border with Lebanon with my unit, while Hezbollah began launching attacks against Israel. So this is the 8th of October, and Hezbollah opened another front against Israel in order to support Hamas in the Gaza Strip. So that's kind of the opening to this situation.
How long did you end up being called up for as a reservist? And I guess you're still on call at this point, but you're not currently active. Is that correct?
That's correct. So I was called. It ended up to be around 4.5 months, and then my unit began its mission in the northern border to defend the Israeli communities against Hezbollah attacks from the sea and from the ground. And then we were called to carry out the offensive against Khan Yunis, which is located inside the heart of the Gaza Strip. Okay, our mission was to dismantle Hamas terrorists in Khan Yunis and to search for the Israeli hostages. So first half was against Hezbollah, the second half was against Hamas in the Gaza Strip. And then we completed our mission, and the IDF and my unit withdrew from Khan Yunis, and we were not called again since then. But since then, other units entered Khan Yunis in that particular location and are fighting Hamas terrorists as we speak, actually, in that location.
And then for your family, obviously they wake up, things are escalating on October 7th, you get called up. How has it been for, maybe particularly for your kids, maybe the older two? Obviously the third one wasn't born at this point, but how has it been for your children?
He was born, but he was very small. Yeah, he was a baby. But I would say that for the children, it was mainly for the oldest. It was very tough. I remember I would have this 48-hour leave to go back home and visit them, and she wouldn't let me go. She would hug me and said, "Don't leave me. I don't want you to go to the war. I don't want you to fight." She knew what I was doing. She knew that I was going to fight bad guys. I mean, that was the level of the conversation. And that's what also they were taught in the kindergarten, because I wasn't special like everybody, or many of the fathers were called to fight and defend our country. So it was very tough, I think. And it was super hard also on my wife, because imagine this. There's a war. All the media is reporting of terrorists crossing the borders, murdering children, women, civilians. I mean, it's terrible. And at that moment, I leave her alone with 3 kids, and all of them, or a lot of the men of the community that we live in, leave and go to be in the IDF. So basically, many Israeli communities were left with only women and children, while being under attack by terrorists from multiple borders. So this is the situation, and it's very hard.
Okay, so then you were called up. You served for 4 months, and at what point did you then go, look, I need to dive into the media side of this? I think everyone we've spoken to that's out there have voiced a concern in terms of Israel's ability to communicate within the media, on social media. And you're one of the people that has dived headfirst into that. So when did you, after coming out from serving on the front lines, jump into the media side of things?
So it wasn't after. It actually happened on the 7th of October, on the same day that Hamas attacked. So a few hours after we realized what was happening, I gave a call to Tomer, my producer and director here at TV in Israel, and I told them, listen, we have to do something. We have a platform. We have to share what is happening right now. We need to share with the world, and especially with the Christians, what is happening in Israel, so that they can, first of all, know what's going on, actually what's going on from the ground, from Israel, and then pray for the situation. Okay, so this happened immediately on the first day. So we just took out a phone and recorded an update from my backyard about the situation. And then we just kept doing that every day. The next day, I was already on the northern border with Hezbollah. We recorded another update. And then the next day, another update. And then it got more and more traction, and people responded to these videos. And we really realized that it was something that is needed. And I would say that at the beginning of the war, people and in general the world and the media was kind of sympathetic towards Israel, and they said, okay, these atrocities really happened, it's very bad, we saw the videos, we saw what Hamas did, it's not good. But it lasted for maybe a week or 2 weeks, and then everything flipped, and Israel became the villain, the bad guys. How dare you go and try to protect your citizens, and how dare you try to retrieve your hostages from the Gaza Strip. And then we really realized that this is not just an actual battle, this is a spiritual battle, because it doesn't make any sense. And the enemy is using deception and lies in order to convince people around the world that Israel is doing bad things by defending itself, by existing, by just being here. And we realized that we need to step up from here, from the ground, from Israel. So we kept doing that every day. And I remember one turning point in this ability to share the news, because I was called into the Gaza Strip. Okay, so back then, when you were called into the Gaza Strip, into the front lines, you were not allowed to come with a phone. And my commander said, I want Yair to come with me to the front lines of the Gaza Strip. First of all, I was like, whoa, how do I tell my wife that he wants me with him in the front lines? Because it's like dangerous. It's like soldiers die every day fighting Hamas terrorists. And these were the first times that we entered the battle against Hamas. So they were stronger back then. And the second thing was like, okay, so if I'm going to go into the Gaza Strip, I need to keep doing these reports. I need to share the truth of what is happening, because someone needs to do it, and the truth needs to go out. So I told my commander, okay, I'm going to be with you as long as I can have a phone with me and I can keep updating on what's happening on the ground and give the world an update on the situation firsthand. And to my surprise, he said, sure, I accept. You can do it. And so I kept giving updates from within the Gaza Strip. And a few videos you've seen me with helmets and the vests and all the military uniform. And the Gaza Strip is not a nice place. I mean, every step you take, you have an underground terror tunnel. Every house was turned into terror infrastructure to be used by Hamas against the IDF. And I mean that they broke the windows in order to prepare them to use sniper rifle against Israel, to fire RPG rockets against our tanks and our troops. And they stocked all the weapons and ammunitions inside schools, inside kindergartens, inside the United Nations buildings, inside mosques. And I've seen this firsthand. And when we entered, the highest number of troops that we lost in one day was on the first day. And Hamas fired at us from a school that we knew that they were operating from, but we could not destroy it because the IDF is abiding by the international law, by the rules of engagement. So before the IDF launches any kind of attack against a civilian building, you have to go through a lot of steps and approvals and making sure that the civilians will not get hurt. But Hamas knows that, and that's where they place their terrorists, their rockets, their missiles, and their underground bunkers. So that's exactly what happens in the Gaza Strip, and we've seen it again and again and again. If you want to know where Hamas is operating, go to the mosques, go to the schools, go to the United Nations buildings. That's where Hamas militants are operating from, because they know that, and they use these international moral standards against Israel.
Excuse me, how is it for you, and I mean you collectively, over there, when you hear so much fabrication on social media, on the news? I mean, fabrication is a nice word. It should be lies out there.
Yeah.
It is frustrating for people like us here, but I can't imagine what it must be like for you there.
Yeah, it's actually very, I would say it's very annoying and very, very sad to see it, because if I would say it's like Muslim countries that are at war with Israel, then I would understand it. But it's Western countries, it's our allies, it's smart students that chant from the river to the sea, and they don't know what river, what sea, they don't know what they're chanting for, and they don't realize that they're being brainwashed and manipulated by Islamic ideologies, extreme ideologies that support death, that are standing against all the freedoms that they are standing for. So just for example, I mean, women's rights is not something that exists in the Gaza Strip, and the freedom of of gender, of equality, everything that these liberal students are chanting for and standing for is the exact opposite of what Hamas is standing for. So at the beginning, I was super upset about it, and I couldn't grasp my head. How is this possible? I mean, it's rational people. Why are they doing that? And then I realized that it's not rational. It's the spirit of deception. It's a spiritual war. That's the only reason that this makes sense, that this is a spiritual war and nothing practical. I mean, look at Israel. We're tiny. We have no natural resources. We have no oil. Why would Iran and all these huge Muslim countries want to destroy us? So I'm talking about Iran. I'm talking about Lebanon with the Hezbollah. I'm talking about Yemen with the Houthis. Talking about Iranian militias in Iraq and Syria. Okay, all of these countries attacking us. Why? What will they gain? They will not gain any more financial status. They would not gain any strategic ability. It's only spiritual. They want to destroy Israel because they want to prove to the world that God is not faithful to his word to the people of Israel. And because, they see that Israel still survives, then that means that God is faithful to his promise to the people of Israel and to any one of you back home that believe in him. Okay, so this is the only explanation. This is a spiritual war, and Israel, by existing, is fulfilling a miracle that God is protecting us against all these enemies. It's nothing special about us, as a people.
With the media, they often hear a story and they rush to report it. A classic example would be the hospital, which a rocket was fired. They then reports seconds after an Israeli rocket hit the hospital, killed like 500 people. So this is now reported all over the world. And then it comes out that actually it was a Hamas rocket that went up, came down in its own territory, didn't hit the hospital, it hit a car park. And I think there may have been a few injuries. I'm not exactly sure of the numbers.
Shifa Medical Hospital, it's the Shifa Medical Center in the Gaza Strip. I remember that. Yeah.
So, it's a classic example. We could point to numerous examples of false reporting, but that's a classic example. For you, who's reporting on the news and what's happening there, how do you, let's say with the hospital, for example, you hear something's happened. How do you go towards finding out what actually happened before you start reporting the information?
Okay, so first of all, there are a few rules in journalism in order to verify a source or a report. Okay, so you need to have multiple sources that are not connected with each other and not basing their information on the same source. So let's say there is a report about the hospital being hit in Gaza. Okay, so let's say the Palestinian Health Ministry is one source. Okay. So that's one source, but you need to know that the Palestinian Health Ministry is under Hamas control. So that source is already, tilted to one side, okay? But that's one source. And then you have, for say, the IDF spokesperson's unit. Okay, so that's another source. Of course, it's part of the IDF, so you say, okay, but then you have these two sources, and then you have video footage from people on the ground, social media networks. Today, you have 1 million people, you have 1 million iPhones or cameras at every location. So you combine the three sources, and that brings you a clear picture of what is happening really on the ground. Okay, so we base our information a lot on either the IDF spokesperson's unit, with cooperation with foreign media networks, but we make sure to validate our information with multiple sources to get the full picture of what is happening on the ground. And if we don't have multiple sources, then we state that this information came from that source, and that source is related or affiliated with Hezbollah, per se, or with Hamas, so that the people will know that the information came from them, and that's how they project what really happened. Okay, and it's a hard job. We have a full team. It's not just me making phone calls or something like that. We have a full team that does this every morning from, I don't know, 6 in the morning, in order for us to give the news at the evening of that day with as much clarity as possible and truth. So this is what we try to do. It's hard work, but it would be a lot easier to just see a picture, a video, and make a huge headline. But that way, you don't have the truth. You just have headlines. It creates a buzz, but it can create a lot of damage on the situation.
And that damage is hard to pull back once it's out. Probably almost impossible.
Yeah, it's impossible because nobody will look at a headline called, "Oh, sorry, we mistakenly said that the attack on the Shifa hospital was Israel. It was actually Hamas firing on themselves," because it's already old news and the damage was already done in the first round of the reporting.
Yeah, do your team, do you find it discouraging, or are you more spurred on by the fight in the media? That it's really a kind of another front lines.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely Israel is fighting on multiple fronts. So I've been talking about two of them, which is like the actual physical front, soldiers fighting terrorists. And then you have the front that is like fighting in the spiritual realm between good and evil. And then there is the fight for the truth. And that's the fight on social media, on the news, on reporting what is actually happening in Israel. So definitely we are motivated by the lack of information and the lack of truthful information that is being shared around the world. I mean, we hope that more networks would really do the homework and the hard work of verifying and finding the actual truths of what's happening. But we also think that as Israelis, being on the ground here, it's our duty and our job to share what is happening here, and not somebody that is living thousands of miles away across the ocean, because it's almost impossible to know what's happening if you're not part of the culture, if you're not here on the ground, and if you don't feel the day-to-day situation. So in practical terms, we have a show that is called My State, also on our TBN Israel YouTube channel. It's a weekly show in which we go to the borders of Israel. Last week, we just visited the Golan Heights, which is bordering with Hezbollah in Lebanon. And we saw the communities that were attacked by missiles, houses destroyed. And these are communities that are not evacuated of Israelis, that are under rocket fire on a daily basis. So it's impossible to share this information if you're not there, if you don't talk to the people, if you don't feel the ground, if you're not like seeing the missiles explode above your head. So this is the difference, I think. And I think it's our job to do it by being here.
On October 7th, we as a family, as an organization, we were checking on people that we knew in the region, seeing how they were doing. And this fast, though, escalated into the nations where you would see Jewish people getting attacked in different countries. And so then we started to message them to see how they were doing. For you, you were saying before we started, a lot of your family are from Brazil. And I'm not entirely sure how bad things would be in Brazil, but Have your family in the nations noticed a rise in anti-Semitism or an unmasking of anti-Semitism where they live? Has it impacted them in the nations?
So I would say that not necessarily family members of mine felt it, but I saw it just now that I've been traveling a bit in the United States and Canada, and you see it in the streets. It's also a topic that you don't want to publicly speak about. I mean, the situation between Israel and Hamas, because it's a topic of diversion. So it splits the people into two areas, like the pro-Hamas and the pro-Israel. And people are afraid to talk about it and afraid to make a stand. And sadly, what's more popular around the world is to be a pro-terrorist, pro-Hamas supporter. It's the cool thing to do. And if you're a pro-Hamas, then you can wave your flags in the streets, in the parks, and chant from the river to the sea, which means basically the annihilation of the Jewish people in Israel. That's what it means. I mean, there's nothing else. And it's sad to see that the people that stand with Israel and that are reasonable or that see that Israel is defending itself are not speaking out. And that's the danger, because I know that there are many, many good people around the world that stand with Israel, or that they just know that defending our own citizens is something that a country should do. But they are not speaking out. They are not heard or raising their voice in the face of all these lies and deception and all these pro-terrorist organizations that are becoming so popular, and you see them everywhere. So this is the first stage. The first stage is, okay, supporting a terrorist organization. The next stage is burning synagogues. The next stage is Jewish people being afraid to wear a yarmulke or a Star of David in the streets, afraid of speaking Hebrew. I have friends that live outside of Israel, and they're afraid of speaking Hebrew in the streets of Germany because they're afraid that they'll be targeted by pro-Hamas supporters. So this is the situation. And then, sadly, history repeats itself. It really feels like what happened in the times of the Holocaust or pre-Holocaust.
I have found that there is a whole section of society that we can miss if we're not careful. And those are the ones that are kind of in the middle and haven't got a clue, and maybe don't even care, that they're the ones you can make inroads with. I know for me, because we travel a lot, it becomes a topic of conversation you can easily open. So someone says, what do you do? I say, and I always start off by saying, I've just come back from Israel. That would be my opening stand. You go to the dentist. Hi, how are you? I've just come back from Israel. And immediately that, for me, I've never met a negative. I mean, I wear the Star of David. I've got the hostage thing and it's out there, and I have the attitude, come on, try taking me on if you're going to, let's see where we get. But I think there's a whole section of society we need to be looking out for, and they're the ones that are not vocal. They're not the ones and make inroads on a daily basis, just in our everyday lives. I know when we were in Israel, one of the things that we got asked repeatedly is, why do you support us? They want to know, why do you do this? And my answer was every time, first of all, because I think you're stupid if you don't. I think you're crazy if you don't. I mean, it just doesn't make any political or any...
Good answer.
Yeah. So I start with that. I think you're crazy, and that takes them by surprise. And then I said, well, it's in the DNA of our family. We are all raised to support Israel, so it's a natural thing. And the third answer I give, I'm a Christian, I read Torah, and it makes it quite obvious to me that this is your land. But I thought it's very interesting that I think from just about everybody, they wanted to know why. Why do you do this? They didn't just say thank you, but why?
Yeah.
Sorry, were you going to say something?
No, was that a question? I can tell you why it's important for Christians to support Israel.
Well, yes.
Okay, so
yeah, no,
so,
but I meant from the average person in your streets who are asking the question. That's the answer I give I give them to open the conversation. But I can, so we can give you many answers as to why. And again, because you're stupid if you don't is my baseline.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good answer. So, but yeah, I think in general, if you don't support Israel, I mean, as a Christian that is living in Western society, in Western countries, just makes complete sense to support Israel. First of all, it's the only democratic country in the Middle East. So even if you are not a Bible-believing Christian, I mean, it makes sense to support the only democratic country that has freedom, like individual freedoms and rights in this region. So if you don't support this country, who are you going to support? It's either us or terrorist organizations that will take over this state. So that's for one, it just makes sense, okay, because we're aligned in our ideology. And then if you're a Christian, then you have biblical verses that call on you to pray for the peace of Jerusalem, to stand with the people of Israel. But then just in practical terms, I mean, Islam and radical Islam and the ideology of Hamas and Iran wants to spread to the West. We've seen it. They invest a lot of money in brainwashing university colleges all over the world, and the top universities. They want to take over the minds of the young people. So they start with Israel, they start with the Jewish people, and then they go to the West, they go to the Christians. So if we don't stop them here in Israel, they will not say, okay, so we destroyed the Jews, it's enough. They want to take over the entire world, and they want to destroy our society. So by standing with Israel, you're standing against all these evil ideologies before they reach Europe and the United States. So that also makes a lot of sense.
And
okay?
also,
and
I will add that without Israel and the Jewish people, we have nothing as Christians.
Yeah, and listen, but we know that God is with us. I mean, He said so. And we know that times will be hard. And we know that the whole world will be against us. And we will win at the end because He is with us. So I'm not afraid. I know that times will be hard. And I think that if you are a betting man, I would bet on the side of God. I mean, who God is fighting with, this is the country that I'm betting on, okay? Not nobody else. So that's why I would bet on Israel.
Yeah, we were serving out there for a bit, not serving in the military. We were helping to volunteer in certain places. Yeah. And I was talking to a rabbi. And the rabbi said to me, why do you think this war is happening? So I said, why do I ultimately think the war is happening? And he said, yes. And I said, ultimately, I think this is a fight for the throne of David in Jerusalem. And the rabbi teared up and ended up not being able to talk to me. He said, I can't speak anymore, and he walked off. And that wasn't my intention, but he was moved by what I'd said. From your perspective, we obviously know there was an attack, there's a response, a terrorist attack, a response to it in the natural. From a biblical perspective, what would your answer be to that? If a rabbi or someone said to you, "Why is this war happening?" In a larger bird's eye view of what's going on.
Well, I would say to a rabbi that people of Israel, God chose the people of Israel. I mean, as His people. And when God makes a covenant with someone, it's forever. So because of that, the enemy is now represented by Hamas, by Hezbollah. So they are tools in the hands of the enemy in destroying Israel. So destroying the connection between God and the people of Israel. And if that connection is destroyed, then the enemy won because he made God look small and he made God not fulfilling His covenant. Okay? And that's the goal. The goal here is to separate people from God. That's the goal of the enemy. Okay? And by standing with Israel, God is proving that He's faithful to His covenant to the people of Israel. So then He will be faithful to His covenant with each and every one of us. Because the people of Israel, well, we're not good people. I mean, we are sinners. Most of the people of Israel don't even believe in Yeshua, in Jesus, as their Messiah. Okay, yet hopefully they all will. But this is the situation. And despite that, God is with us. Despite that, He's defending us against 7 fronts that we are fighting currently. And despite that, throughout history, against all odds, Israel is still here. And I'll tell you something. God, when He makes a miracle, He makes sure that the miracle is so big that nobody can take responsibility for this miracle. And that's why when Israel is attacked, it's always attacked by like 7 countries that are at least 10 times the size of Israel, with stronger armies and lots of troops, to make sure that the miracle is done by God and not by Israel, not by our wisdom, our army, our military. It's only God protecting us, and it shows the world that God is in control, that He is faithful. And I think that this war will prove to many people around the world that God is a true God, and many more people will come to Him and believe in Him. And I think that's the bigger picture of the situation, and that's why the enemy wants to destroy Israel, to prevent that from happening.
And would you say there is a wider, say, movement, that's a big word, of Israelis seeing that as well?
Well, I think that Israelis at the moment, since this war started, realized that we are always under attack by all these enemies. But it's something that you grow up here in Israel. So I would say many people, Israelis, know and believe in a God, but they don't know, exactly how to reach Him, how to speak to Him, and how to form this personal connection. And hopefully, this is something that God will need to do. He will need to reveal Himself to each and every Israeli individually, because this is a personal relationship. It's not something that, boom, the whole nation together. It's a personal, one by one, personal encounter between God and men. That's the only way people can believe in God. No way to convince anybody.
So as we're drawing near the end, I'm going to ask you a question that will help us. Okay?
Yes.
Okay. So, as you know, we've been bringing teams out there to help, to walk the streets, to show people that we care, etc., etc. It's always a question, isn't Israel dangerous? Because we've been bringing tours out for about 14, 15 years. Yeah. Now,
and even outside wars, people say,
"Yeah,
isn't Israel dangerous?"
Yeah,
and now there is a war going on,
and so it is. I'm going to say virtually impossible to get people to come. Now, having said that, obviously we brought 3 teams up. We've had people who've sold everything they have to come. There are people who brought their daughters out, despite the fact that there's a war on, because they wanted to obey God's command to comfort my people. And in our humble opinion, you have to be present with the people to truly comfort them. So what would you say now to people listening when we're saying, come on, come with us, and they're going, oh no. Would you say these 2 are just crazy, don't step on a plane? Or what would you say to them?
Wow. Well, I will tell them, okay, first of all, to pray and seek God's will, what to do in this situation for sure. But I will tell them that if you come, and you too that are coming and bringing groups here, it's an amazing encouragement for us, for the people of Israel, to see people coming in support of us, physically living your lives, making the hard journey. And it's also expensive now because not many flights are operating towards Israel. So it's like only a few airliners that come here. So making this huge efforts to come and help us, and we need the help for sure. Many people are still fighting, so there's not of agricultural fields that need tending, and a lot of facilities that need help. And there's, from here until I can talk about for an hour about the needs of the citizens of Israel. So by coming here physically, it's a huge difference. And people are personal people. So if you make $1 million donation and send it to some organization in Israel, then most likely the person that gets the help will not know who gave it and will not have a conversation with you. and a personal connection. But if you come here, help an Israeli, or like on a full day, just helping, working with him in the field, painting a bomb shelter, whatever you do, it will leave everlasting experience with him. Okay? And then maybe years to come or something, he will have a personal encounter with God and realize, these people came here and they had no reason to support me in this time. And really, these experiences can change a life. And it means a lot. And I'm a personal kind of guy, so I believe that, face to face, I wish you guys were here in the studio with me and not on Zoom, because it's a whole different level.
Yeah.
And to answer your question about the security situation, okay, school started today in Israel. And unless you're on the border with the Hezbollah or with Lebanon in the north, or on the border with the Gaza Strip, life goes on. People go to work. People go to send their kids to school. Restaurants are open. Tourist sites are open. So if you want to come here and not wait in lines to see all the tourist sites, this is the best time to come. You'll have the sites for yourselves and you help Israel. So, and don't be afraid. I mean, Iran launched 300 missiles at us. We had 99.9% success rates of our aerial defense systems. So we are very good at defending ourselves in Israel. So I think it's very safe to come into, of course, the heart of Israel and areas that are not next to the borders.
Well, on that note, it'd be a good one to finish.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. It's been good to hear from you. Hopefully, people that listen to this or watching it will go check out your links, be able to get information and news from someone who is literally there on the ground, reporting the information, not just people that are just reporting the first thing that comes to their minds. Oh, here's an image, we'll just make up a story. You've got someone here and people that do the research to find out what is actually going on, that see it firsthand. So please, everyone, go check out those links. They're in the description box. Yair, thank you so much for taking the time. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Me too. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Remember, if it inspired you, share it with others so we can see more people engaged in this community.